Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Booth. Howard Chaney here, along with Phil Harris, and our special guest tonight. I'll quit making everybody motion sick here in a second once I get my cheer right. But sorry about that, guys. But joining us tonight is North Alabama Community College Athletic Director Jimmy Kolaitis, also the assistant softball coach for the Northeast Lady Mustangs. And Coach, thanks for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on.
Well, wait till we get done before you thank us or and all that,
Yeah.
because some of these questions you may be thinking, "Oh my gosh, what have I got into?" Oh, I've got to mute my phone. Sorry about that. Anyway, Coach, let's get started. Tell us a little about yourself and how did you get involved with Northeast?
Well, I've been coaching at the Division I level for almost 18 years. Bounced around a little bit, and of course, Coach Guthrie gets the job. I've known Coach for a long time, and he mentioned that they were looking for an athletic director, and I've always kind of wanted to make the move to administration at some point, just the way college athletics kind of is, and when that opportunity came, I talked to Dr. Campbell and thought it was time for the move for me. It's the Division I level, the Power Four level. I enjoyed it. I'm really blessed in the opportunities that I've had, but it was the game has changed, and the portal and the NIL and all that stuff, and even the administration on that level, and it's just something that you've got to adjust to. And I was ready to go do something else, and I like coaching. I enjoy coaching on the field, and I feel like at this level, you can do more of that than you could at the Power Four. I think there's a lot more management that goes on over there. And so I thought it was time for the right move for just lifestyle in general. So, came down here. I've lived in Alabama half my life and lived everywhere in the state but North Alabama. So this is a beautiful part of the country. So I'm glad I'm here.
Well, we're glad to have you here as long as, and I know everybody else is as well because of everything that y'all have done for Northeast with the softball program, the soccer program, the what else am I missing? The golf program, soccer,
Cross
geez,
country.
cross country. Yeah. Coach, in case you didn't realize, I don't take notes. I go by the seat of my pants. So I just go off of the answers that the guest gives us. But thanks for everything that you've done for Jackson, DeKalb County area, and bringing all these sports in. And we had Coach Guthrie on the other day, and uh, Phil asked him about his players, and he's talking about, this player coming in at 6 foot, this player's coming in at 6 foot. And I finally asked him, I'm like, Coach, are y'all thinking about having a basketball team with all these 6 footers coming in? He's like, oh, that's a question you have to ask Dr. Campbell and AD. I'm like, well, I was just wondering if you're trying to help the basketball program out, bringing in all these 6 footers. So, but the size really, height wise, does it really matter when it comes to softball players?
Well, I think, can you get smaller players and have success? Yeah, we've got a couple. I mean, we've got an arm this year, freshman that's 5'3", and she's phenomenal. And our center fielder, Kylie Weston's not very big either. So those two are really, really good ball players. So you can have some of those, but just like anything else, when you're physical and you're athletic, your body tends to hold up longer. It doesn't mean that the small athletes don't, but it's just on the offensive side, you miss hit a ball, you got a chance to hit it 200 feet. So does it matter? No. Is it, do you want a bunch of 5-footers? No. Do you have to have a bunch of 6-footers? No. But, physical athletes are always nice to have.
Yeah, I'll ask one more question and turn it over to Phil. I know he's got a lot of other things to ask besides just softball questions, but softball program, y'all going to get started this coming Friday at home. Always a good attendance for everything that's going on. And who will you kick it off with this week?
Marion Military.
Okay, all right. That's you have a little scouting report on them. We had Gaston State on last night, and they're playing them actually today, or I think right now. So you'll be able to do a little scouting on them. I know it's not really season, but it's always nice to have a scouting report, not just for when you play them during the regular season, but also something that may come up before the season starts.
No, it's always not, the more information you get, the better, the better you can prepare your athletes. But at the end of the day, for us, it's just playing our game. We've worked on all sorts of different things in all aspects of the game, and spin and velocity, at the plate and approach, and Joe's done a great job with the defensive piece, and pitchers have to command the ball and put it where they want, mix speeds, and if we do that, we feel really confident we've got a good club. But we've also we've got a ton of freshmen as well. Our returners have some experience, and our newcomers, it's still their first college game. So they'll have some rust and some nerves and that kind of stuff. They'll just have to work past.
Phil, I know I said I was going to come to you. I got one last question, then we'll turn it over because you mentioned about pitching, and earlier you said you had a little 5'3" pitcher. No offense to her, kind of making a joke a little bit, but when she's pitching and she does a rise ball or a drop ball, being at 5'3", does a rise ball make it like eye level with somebody like about 5'8", and does the drop ball drop it too far out of the strike zone?
No, because it's she's got long arms, even though she's short, and she spins it. She can, she's got bigger fingers, and she's got a bigger hand than some of our other pitchers who are taller than she is. She knows how to command the ball. She knows how to move the ball up in the zone. She knows how to change speeds. She's Gatorade Pitcher of the Year, but more importantly, she's got an attitude on the mound that she knows she's going to win every time she steps in the circle. And so, it's she'll throw one over the head just like a 6-footer will. So the size piece for her doesn't matter. She's a phenomenal athlete with the right mentality, and I'm excited to see what these 2 years how they go for her.
Absolutely. Phil, go ahead.
Well, Jimmy, one of the things I heard you say about taller players, shorter players. There's a friend of mine, his daughter's being recruited, and they have told her at times she may be too short to play the corner. What exactly does that mean?
I have no clue. You got to ask him.
I just he told me that, and I don't know what and he told me that, and I really didn't understand what that meant. Well, maybe that's some terminology I've never heard of.
It sounds like just an excuse, to be honest. I mean, one of the best first basemen I've ever had defensively was a 5'5" kid at Oregon. That anything, there's more ball thrown in the dirt than there are over the head. Now, infielders sometimes like a bigger body at first base, but if you can catch the ball and you can hit, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I guess in a sense, maybe it's talked about when coaches may be looking at those shots down the line, because a lot of times they'll be just out of the reach of the fielder if they're kind of short, because they'll shoot them right down that line a lot of times.
If you throw the ball to the chest, it doesn't matter if they're 5'5" or 6 foot. You throw the ball to the chest like you're supposed to.
Yeah. Hey, I understand. Well, Coach, you had talked about that you have come a long way. Talk about some of the schools you were at. I know at one time you were the head coach at UAB. You've been at Oregon. Talk about some of the stops you've had, and how did you meet Coach Guthrie?
So I'll start with how I met Coach Guthrie. My first stop, as I was finishing up school. I was fortunate enough. I started actually I played at a junior college, and I stayed there for a year and coached up in Tennessee at Southwest Tennessee Community College. We were fortunate to win its only championship over there, and I left there to go to Troy to finish up my degree. And Bobby Pierce and Mark Smart both gave me the opportunity to be director of ops and work within the baseball program, and that kind of got my coaching career going. And that summer I went to Alaska to coach in the Alaskan Collegiate League. And while I was there, before I go to the next spot, that's where I first met Joe Guthrie. Bobby Pierce was a Tuscaloosa guy, played at the University of Alabama. To me, is still one of the best coaches probably to ever come out of the state. And Joe had known him coming up. He was recruited by Bobby when Bobby was at UAH for a while. And Bobby walks in the office and goes, "Hey, I got a guy that I used to coach back in the day. He's coaching at a high school. He's taking his high school kids around the state of Alabama nobody has ever played in a college athletics out of that high school. It's a little private school. And he just wants them to understand and see what the college atmosphere is for college athletics." And so he was going from school to school. And so Bobby said, "Hey, I want you to, this guy's coming in. I want him to show him around, take care of the kids, take care of him." And that was the first time I met Joe. and me and him just kind of hit it off and had great conversation. And we're pretty similar in age. He is a year older than me, but
yeah, let's make sure we get that point out there. He is older.
And so what I thought he was doing was pretty impressive, to try to teach those young athletes what it takes to get to the next level. They all showed up. They had shirts and ties, very respectful. And not only did a lot of those kids end up playing college athletics, I believe 1 or 2 of them got drafted, played some pro ball. And so that's how I got to meet Joe, and just kind of kept up with him over the years. After my 4 years at Troy, I ended up having the opportunity I got into softball. And that was my first job, was at the University of South Alabama. And at that time, it was the 3rd year of the program. So they just got kick-started. I was there for 5 years. By that 5th year, we ranked 13th in the country. We were actually an out away from a super regional. Very talented team. After my years there, I ended up going that summer and coaching in the pro league with the Chicago Bandits. And while I was in Chicago, I ended up getting a call from the University of Oregon, and Mike White, who's now at Texas, won a national championship last year. And I went over there to Oregon and spent 5 years at Oregon. We went to 4 World Series, had a lot of success. And I thought it was time to get home and be a head coach. And that's when UAB came in. I went there for 2 years. And, year 2 was COVID. So that was tough. And it wasn't quite what I thought it was, to be honest. And I brought Joe in to be my assistant. I ended up, loved the kids, loved what we were doing. First year was a culture building. Year 2, we made a huge jump. We had beaten, Georgia Tech right off the bat. We had Washington, who was number 3 in the country. We got walked off by them in the 7th. So we really started to turn the corner, and then COVID hit. And during all that time, I realized maybe that wasn't the right place for me. And not because of the athletes. Love the athletes. They were great young women, and I knew they were in good hands with Joe, but I ended up going to Arizona State. So I spent the last 4 years at Arizona State with 2 different coaching staffs. And on top of that, I also spent the last 3 summers with Team USA. So I was with the national team. I went to the Canada Cup. I also won a gold medal with the 15 and unders in Japan. And this past summer, or 2 summers ago, I went to Italy with the big group. And so, like I said, been really fortunate in my experiences.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like it. Well, are you in the same boat that Joe Guthrie is? He was at Texas A&M, and with the things changing in NIL, of course, I guess talk about too how much women's softball has grown over the last 20 years. It's actually, I would rather watch softball than I would baseball because it's so fast. I enjoy it so much more. But Coach Guthrie talked about this when he was at A&M and the NIL started coming in, and what he enjoyed about coaching was development. And at the Power 4 conferences, you've kind of lost that. And I guess you made a comment on that. It's been more managed than it is developed. Is that what got you back to where you enjoy being at the junior college level? Because it's more about player development.
It is. It's player development and relationships, Phil. And, the reason I got to the University of Oregon was my ability to recruit. And when I recruit, my first thing is I evaluate the ability and I recruit the people, and I build a relationship with them and their families. And nowadays you can still build that relationship and they won't come because for one reason or another, maybe it's, hey, I'm getting offered. I mean, there's kids that we've offered. I'll be honest. There's kids that we've offered $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year that we can't even get on campus because we're getting outbidded. And which means the relationship piece doesn't matter. And I just read an article this morning in basketball where the recruitment of high school kids have dramatically decreased because they're not going after high school kids anymore because they can just go in the portal and get the next kid who's older, more experienced, more mature. And I think that's going to bleed into softball at some point. And, and it's tough. And not only you're recruiting that way, you're also re-recruiting the players that you already have on your roster. And so that makes it tough. Especially I remember I sat in a meeting 2 years ago where our compliance people were talking about a lawsuit that went on with the NCAA where they lost. The NCAA lost that lawsuit, which basically allowed legal tampering as long as it wasn't coming from the school of the coaches. So your boosters or your collectives can now go in there and offer money while they're playing for you during that season. And it blew my mind. I said, how are we supposed to, it's become a business, and realistically that level needs to go to a business model. Hey, you want to leave, but you're going to pay a buyout, right? Like there needs to be some regulations there that if we're going to turn this into a business, it needs to be a business model. And I've heard Gino Auriemma talk about it and some of these other great coaches. So for me, that's not what I want to do. I spent 7 days in my home the last summer. I was at the D1 in my bed, stressed out all the time. So I thought it was some time to go do something where, for what we got in the game for, and that's coaching and building relationships. And that's what I love to do. And I feel like I'm getting that again at the junior college level.
Well, of course, at the junior college level, Northeast is, back new to having sports. I remember back when I went to Northeast back in the mid 80s and the early 90s, and when I was going to junior college, they had still talked about Northeast basketball program. It was still talked about, and there was always that dream about athletics coming back to Northeast. And, Dr. Campbell's had a great vision. Tell us a little bit about him and tell us about his vision, because Northeast has really put itself on the map. And I think athletics has a lot to do with it. And even Tom Shanklin said in this community, probably 1 out of every 2 people has ties to Northeast College. And that's probably true. My wife graduated nursing school there. I went to school there. So that's probably so. And I think people's taken a lot of pride in this athletic program.
Well, Dr. Campbell gets all the credit. It was his vision and what he wanted, in this school, and he's extremely supportive. When I made the comment earlier about, administration isn't quite what it used to be in college athletics, the support that we get here from Dr. C is unbelievable. He wants us to be successful. He's given us everything we could possibly ask for. We've got great facilities. He trusts what we're doing in the athletic department. So he gets 100% of the credit of what's going on right now. And without his support, you have a lot of presidents or in a lot of schools where, yep, let's do sports, but some care, some don't care, some just, want the enrollment increase. He wants us to be successful. And I appreciate that out of him. That's the great thing of a community college. It's about the community. So, we've been able to get out and, we do camps here all the time. I mean, when Joe first got here, he was doing free camps for some of the locals, building a relationship around here. And it's not always going to be, I know people expect, that every athlete we have here is within the 2 counties. That's not going to happen. But we do want to make sure that the best athletes in this area that can play at this level ends up at Northeast in all the sports that we have. But I remember when I was at Troy and Dr. Hawkins, who I look up to a lot, he used to say all the time, he said, academics is everything. He said, but athletics is the face of our college. And what he meant by that is, you turn on ESPN and Troy's playing in a ball game, people see that. And so it's just kind of created on top of the great academics that we've built here. I remember before I even got the job, I had a former player of mine who was from up here said, "Hey, you're going to the Harvard of the South." Right. So it's the academic piece here is amazing of what they've created. Now we've just opened it up a little bit more with a whole other area in the athletic piece.
Yeah. Well, and also you talk about that in the academics. Northeast grade standards a little bit higher than most junior colleges when they come in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Joe Guthrie, I'd asked him about that last time, and he said that's a standard, we've got a higher standard for our kids when they come in. Well, tell us about some of the other pieces. I know Tom Shanklin, I know him. He's a soccer coach. Jabo Moore's the new golf coach, used to be at North Sand Mountain. Coach Haynes left and went back to high school coaching. So y'all have hired kind of within the area as far as coaches go. And of course, you guys are from outside the area, but it's also good to have some local flavor because people knows, Coach Shanklin and Coach Moore, because they've been successful coaches at the high school level.
Right. Yeah, we love the coaching staffs that we have. We had the original coaches with Coach Laney and Doug, and they did a great job of building the foundation. And they have both decided to move on and do other things. And so my goal was to go find coaches that can continue to build off the foundation and get us to the next level as well. And part of that, I need somebody with passion, somebody that can recruit around here or in the state, that's had success. The three things that we look for is somebody that's going to help these athletes become great students, great people, and build their culture, and try to compete for championships. And I feel like the group that we brought in with I want to say Coach Moore, but we got two Coach Moores, John and Jabo. Jabo, it has been nothing but positive things I've heard from our athletes, from the community. He had his first competition, and I see the culture he's trying to build and what he's trying to do. And he was, he was frustrated after the first week, and I told him, I said, that's why I hired you, because I want somebody that wants to build this. And when you don't have the success that you're used to having, I want it to bother you as a coach. And it does bother him that they're not having, didn't have success week one. And I think by the time they get to the conference tournament, I think it's going to be a completely different club. And same thing with John. John's, had a great career at the high school, and he has come out of the gate firing with the recruiting piece. He's brought in, he had basically a month before school started and added some elite runners for us. And so I see how hard those two are working. I see the culture that they're trying to build, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is, yes, we want to win. Yes, we want to win championships, but we're trying to prepare these young athletes the next 2 years for the next 40. And I want coaches that represent that. And I think we've got a staff that does that. Tom, another one that's been here, that's been in this area, that's had success at Fort Payne. And, he's running into that year one of, he's got a team that has never played together. And so he's got to build that. And, it takes time. I told all the coaches, it's usually by about year 3 when your culture and your players start to roll in a little bit. So I think they're all going to do a great job. I think they're doing a great job right now. And I'm excited to see where they build this to.
Yeah, I understand. Well, Jimmy, of course, you've been an assistant softball coach. Joe Guthrie's the head coach. And then, of course, Courtney has a big, a big dude. Y'all kind of work together. Yeah, Joe's the face and, he's the head coach. But y'all all have your own little areas. Coach Guthrie had talked about he likes the defensive part of things. He said, you are a lot of times a good hitting instructor and recruiter. Courtney is more about the pitchers and catchers. So that all kind of works well in that y'all have all blended in as a staff.
Well, we've worked together before at UAB. So just in different roles, where I was the head coach and Joe was the assistant and Courtney was pitching coach. So we've been together. We know each other. So we've got that relationship. But then we've also coached together. Little different role when I'm the head coach, but Joe still always did the defense. Courtney always did the pitchers, and I had the hitters. So the roles and what we're doing within the team pretty much stays the same outside of, who the head coach is. And but regardless, if I was the head coach or Joe's the head coach, we still trust enough. We trust each other enough to have conversations. And, at the end of the day, when I was a head coach, I made the final decision, and here Joe makes the final decision. And so, we all know that, we all respect that, but we can at least have conversation, which I've been part of staffs where that's not a thing, where you don't have a say as an assistant coach. But we're fortunate here where we can all have those conversations. And, I think Joe is a great head coach, and I think he's going to do great things here. And, and we trust each other. And I think that's what makes his staff work.
Well, kind of off the field into the office part of it, you're kind of the boss, and then on the field, he's kind of the boss. So is he in charge of coffee and donuts in the morning, and then you're in charge of snacks in the afternoon? Is that kind of the way it works?
No, we put all that on Courtney.
Okay.
We all drink coffee. We don't eat donuts except for Courtney. The skinny one's the only one. Well, I guess Joe's pretty slim too, but Court's the one that eats all that stuff. So
yeah, so that's on her. She takes care of that. Coach, I know you've got the first home game coming up, but most of your schedule is travel. And Coach Guthrie told us a lot of that is, to develop players, play against the best competition you can play, and also schools that are interested in your players, if they make it to the 4-year level. But is this also a way of getting these girls together to where they spend some quality time together and get to know each other off the field as well as on the field? Because, at a junior college level, you don't have a lot of time with them. So anytime you can spend with them, to kind of pull them together as a team, is that kind of the idea of this too?
No, I don't think it's as much as that. I think it's trying to throw them in the fire a little bit and play competitively. Going on the road and traveling, 3, 4, 5 hours, if we're able to do that, playing on the road's one of the tougher things you do. I mean, you look at it, in any league and, especially when you talk about football, right, going into some of those environments, we want to put them in the fire. We want to put them in front of, different facilities and different crowds. And we want it. We're trying to make this. We want this fall to be way tougher than the spring. That's what we want to accomplish out of that. The team aspect. We talk to them every day. We've had some outings as a group. We take about 30 or 40 minutes a week on really breaking down some culture and what we need and what we expect out of all of them. And so we get that piece in. That's part of our. It's part of what Joe has kind of established here is kind of the culture piece, and so I don't necessarily think that putting them on the road, and I mean, heck, they're sleeping half the time in that bus. So, but going on the road and trying to come together and playing in those tough environments is what we want to create.
Yeah. Hey, I understand that is definitely so. And Coach Guthrie talked about another thing, and I'm sure you've seen this too. The difference between year 1 and year 2 is light years away. You guys don't have to, everybody understands terminology mostly. I mean, especially returning players. A lot of the returning players know what to expect, and they kind of, send that down to the younger players. Do you feel like you're light years ahead this year than you were last year?
No doubt. Still got a long way to go. But for sure, I think our, we didn't have anybody that was in our program last year that had expectations walking in and understand what this staff was about. And this year we've got about half the team that was here last year. So they understand what we do, why we do it, how we do it. And they've been unbelievable in helping the younger ones out. And, there's always just a year of maturity that you see between the older ones and the younger ones is different. And so they've helped kind of create the culture piece and what the expectations and standards are. So, yeah, I mean, having a group back that's been through the fire with us is a huge boost.
Well, I want to ask you this. With the new stadium, of course, you've got a new soccer stadium coming in. Is that really and truly, and of course, the off-season workouts, I mean, you've got the facility y'all use for development. Is that really helping in recruiting when the players come to visit on campus?
Yeah, anytime, these athletes like the bright lights a little bit, right? And so, when you come in here and you see the facility and it kind of opens everybody's eyes because it's as nice as, most facilities in the state at the 4-year. But I also tell all of them, like, if you're making a decision because we've got a really nice stadium, like, that's not why you should make it your decision. You should make your decision because this is truly the right fit. And you want to be, coached by the people who are here. You want to play here. You want to develop, understand what's important is, the academic piece, the development piece, the culture piece, and what our facilities allow us to do is develop because we've got the indoor facility. Some places we go to don't have an indoor facility. And I mean, tonight after practice, I mean, there was about 5 girls sitting in there hitting together. They have those opportunities. I was at another school where we built a brand new facility and somebody asked me, goes, what's your favorite part of the facility? And I said, the indoor cage, because they get to literally come in and develop. And so I think that's what separates our facilities, not necessarily the I mean, it's all beautiful and it's all great, and yes, it helps in recruiting, but I think the biggest piece is that there's a development piece that goes on when you have facilities like that if you use it correctly.
Well, of course, that's also that kind of sort of gets the players' of attention, but your high standard for academics is something that draws parents in, I'm sure, because do y'all spend a lot of time with the kids in developing what they want to be in the future? Because a lot of these players, now that we're seeing a lot more softball players playing ball, and I had talked to Joe about this, there's a girl, say, at North Sand Mountain, and she's thinking about going into teaching or nursing, because that's two of the most, if you're going to college in Alabama, that's what you're kind of sort of looking at most of the time. Well, all of a sudden you get to go play softball at Northeast. Your horizon broadens. You might decide you want to go into coaching. You might decide you want to go into video. And there's so many things that it kind of sort of opens the door for these kids, because they become they get blended in with athletes who have similar goals, and their horizon has been broadened. Do you see that and that really helping in the future? Do y'all do some things to try to help develop them as being great people off the field?
All the time. I mean, that's part of one of our selling points. And the academic piece, Courtney's also our academic advisor. So she's right in the mix with helping them figure out what they want to do and what route they need to go. And, Coach Guthrie talks about the value piece and he does things with them like what we call the 168 hour rule, where, it's basically 168 hours in a week. So he makes them pick their goals academically, athletically, and personally. And then he makes them fill out, hey, what'd you do the last 168 hours? And so they have to write it out. I get 8 hours of sleep per day. I get, I spend this amount of time on social media. I watch this amount of time on Netflix. I put this amount of time. And then he looks at the goals and sees if they match what they're doing for the week. And I think it's things like that help these kids grow and hold themselves accountable for what they're doing. Hey, I want to be a great student. Okay, well, you're spending, 12 hours a week in class and 10 hours a week studying. That's not going to make you a great student. Like, that's a 40-hour job, right? So, he kind of opens up and teaches them how to be accountable, and the gratitude piece and being appreciative of things that they have, and that's important. So I think Joe does an unbelievable job with that.
Well, and I talked with him about this when I had asked him before, his military background. That's very goal-oriented, very big-time attention to detail. Is that part of the things you see in him that's great assets?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's he wants them to do it. He wants them to do everything right. And that's, the standard that he holds for all his athletes is higher than most coaches, which makes it difficult, not difficult to play here, but it makes it, more challenging than some other places, because in a lot of places, they're just going to let you get away with things. It's not necessarily catching a ball and throwing it first, but it's catching it right and throwing it correctly. And we've gotten away from that in society in general. So, and it's just not softball, it's everything. And I think that's what he tries to teach some of these young athletes.
Yeah, because I've heard of one coach that I know his daughters play at the high school level, and he wants his daughter to play for the Coach Guthrie type. It's tough, hard-nosed, do things the right way, and of course, talking with him, that seems like the way he is. Well, tell me this.
The problem with that, though, Phil, the problem with that is we don't coach the parents.
Yeah.
So, the parents want these kids to get that, yet the kid can't handle that. And so the kids got the young athletes, young women and men that want to go to college to do this stuff need to want to do that. And if they don't, then they need to go somewhere that's a better fit for them. But we run into that a lot where the parents, we want them to be tough on them. We want them to do this. And then the first sign of, hey, you're not being nice to my kid, or the kid can't handle it. And then the problem begins. And so, every player that we've had the 2 years here, they knew what they were walking into with some of that. And then it's not, it's not a feel good thing all the time. And we're missing that in college athletics because we're doing a disservice when you're patting kids on the back all the time.
Yeah, you definitely, because a lot of these kids that come into you were great high school players, and they've always, and sometimes they'll get a little soft because they're the best player on their team. You don't necessarily have to dig as deep, but when they get to your level, everybody's on a level playing field, and you better dig deep or you're not going to see much playing time.
No doubt.
Well, tell me this, Coach. Everybody that I've talked to said you were a great recruiter, a great closer. What are some of the things that you do to build that trust? And that's what it has to be. What are some of the things you are really conscious of when you're recruiting a player?
Phil, he may not want to give his secrets away.
Yeah,
it may be like grandma's chocolate cake. There, she ain't gonna give away the secret recipe there.
It's really, there's not a huge secret to it. It's just being honest. My philosophy is evaluate the ability to recruit the person. So the first thing I look for is what kind of people am I recruiting? Do they have the same values that we have as coaches? And my job is to learn everything about them and learn everything about their families. And when I go through that process, it's about building relationships. And for me, that's everything. And I think, there's kids that I've recruited over my 18 years that I never got to coach, that didn't come to us, that I still get text messages from the relationship we built through the recruiting process. And so that's important to me. To this day, for the majority of my players that every holiday I wake up at 4:00 in the morning and I text every one of them a happy, Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, whatever holiday it is. I've got all their birthdays down, and every birthday, I just sent one this morning, 4:00. She's like, "You're still sending early texts?" I go, "Yeah, you need to get your butt up and answer the phone." But I try to keep up with all of them because the relationship piece to me is important. And that's what I try to do with every one of my athletes.
And the reason I'm laughing is because the River City founder, Randall Cunningham, sent you the link this morning about 5:30. And he's like, "I'm sorry about the time," because he's in Chattanooga, so there's an hour difference. And so me and Phil is always getting texts between 5 and 6 our time. And he's like, "I'm sorry, Coach. I'm sorry if I woke you up, whatever." You're like, "Nope, I'm up, wide awake, going." So that's when you said you was up at 4 and started talking about that. It just kind of tickled me a little bit because, sure enough, people, he was the fastest response we've ever got on one of those texts. At 5, I think it's around 5:30 this morning.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, "Oh boy, Randy." I said, some of these guys don't get up to 7 or 8 o'clock and get started good. And then you answered, and I was like, "Well, not Jimmy."
But I think the honesty piece in the recruiting process is what we miss anyway. I don't sell them anything. I don't want to sell, I don't sell our facilities to anybody. I give them information. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. If you want to play for somebody like this or us, then this is a great spot. If that scares you a little bit, go somewhere else. You don't have to.
And that's the kind of way I feel, Coach, is, transparent. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character. When you walk into the room with somebody in a short conversation, you pretty well feel like that person.
I try to. I try to know everything. I tell recruits all the time, my job is to know everything about you before you get here. And, if you chew bubble gum, I want to know what flavor you're chewing. Right. So that's kind of my job. I watch them at the games. What are they doing in the dugouts? I watch them in between games in travel ball. How are they talking to their parents? How are they talking to their buddies? There's been a lot of good athletes that I've watched and I go, I don't know. I mean, if they're talking to mom and dad like that, what are they going to say to me? What are they going to say behind my back? I need the right. I don't need the best players. I need the right players. It's kind of always been my mindset.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, something I didn't think to ask you about your wife, of course, traveling all over countries, and we've been through this. My wife is a widow on Friday nights, and of course I'm doing podcasts too. They are a very important part of your family. Tell us a little bit about her.
Say that again. You broke up.
Tell us a little bit about your wife and what she means to you and what she's meant to you over the years to get you where you're at now. I mean, everybody has to have a good supporting cast.
You mean the real Coach K?
Yeah.
She fortunate we met at Troy. She was in sports information, so she did that for years. And then right before we got married, she went to Middle Tennessee State, and she was sports info there. And then when we decided we were going to get married, we figured we needed to be in the same area. So, and she's from the Mobile area. If I say Mobile, she's from Baldwin County. She'll yell at me if I say Mobile, right? And she got a job down there working for an unbelievable company, and the boss has been great to her. And of course, a couple years later, I ended up getting the job at Oregon, and her boss kept her on board and allowed her to work remote. And she grew, she worked in athletics for a long time, so she has an understanding of what the lifestyle is like. And she's followed me all over the country, from Mobile to Oregon to UAB, which Birmingham was not her favorite, and then down to Arizona, and now back up here. So she's been so supportive. I couldn't have done what I've done without her. I mean, those summer gigs in the pro leagues, like, I'm gone the whole summer. She's not with me, and she's allowed me to do that. So now the national team, I had to take her to Italy, so she was appreciative of that. But But she, without her, I couldn't have done what I've done in my career. And, everything I do is she supports and she backs me up. And I'm very, very fortunate because in this profession, divorce rate is high. And there's a lot of people that have, relationships or spouses that don't understand what we do and what we're trying to do. And she does. So very appreciative of what she does for me.
Yeah, hey, I understand. My wife's very good about that. That's like I told her I want to go try to watch the softball game. We've got team of the week at Woodville. I don't know that if I'm going to be able to make that, but I want to try to go see the softball game. She goes, well, I'll go with you. And of course, she knows Dana Hampton, which is Jada's mother. So that gives somebody she does know. But yeah, she's always ready. Sometimes she'll go, are you not going to go to the ball game? I don't have to go. You go. So, and that's always good to have that kind of support, because sometimes you're just like, you kind of feel bad leaving them alone, but they kind of expect that because they know what it is you have to do.
Right. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Coach, as the athletic department at Northeast kind of grows, do you feel in the future your role will strictly be athletic director and you'll kind of ease away from coaching that much?
Well, that's what it was supposed to be, and Joe suckered me into coaching, so here I am. But no, who knows? I mean, it's the first time kind of being an athletic director and trying to run everything. And right now, I think we're pretty good in the sports that we have. Is there a chance in the future of growth? I mean, that's definitely a Dr. Campbell, whatever he wants to do with it. But if it does expand, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do both. But right now with Joe being here and me knowing him for so long and the relationship we have, I love coaching with him and Courtney. And, so I don't want to say yes, but I don't want to say no. I enjoy coaching, and, for the first time in a long time, I've enjoyed being around a group. And so, we'll just kind of see how this goes in the future. But right now I'm loving it. And I tell athletes all the time, be where your feet are. And this is where I'm at right now. And I'm enjoying what I do every day.
Yeah. Do you see yourself, are you happy enough here that you see yourself maybe staying here and retiring here?
That's the plan. I'm tired of moving. Yeah. I haven't made moves, from town to town. I've gone across the country. So, but I love it here. We bought a house in Scottsboro, kind of closer to Gunnersville, and we like our house. We enjoy living here. It's close to a lot of things. I've got playing in Tennessee. I've got a lot of my former teammates up there, and we're able to do some different things. So yeah, I think this is kind of the last stop for me.
Yeah, the kind of the home away from home now. Well, and you kind of sort of look back and you see all this NIL stuff going on and all the player development changing and so many things going on at the higher level. Well, used to you would say, well, once you get started, you have to keep climbing the ladder. You can't come back down. Well, that's kind of changed now, because now, coaches want to be where you're at now. You're seeing a lot of good coaches getting into the junior college level. And one thing good about softball around here, a lot of good softball programs in a small vicinity. I mean, there's some great programs around here to keep it competitive, and that probably helps you in recruiting too.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said you want to build your program from within, and then you expand out and get some pieces to it, and that's kind of, I think, the philosophy we'll continue to work with.
That sounds good. Well, tell me this: when coaching goes on, a lot of times you'll have good cop, bad cop, and that kind of thing. A lot of times, do y'all kind of have that happen sometimes where one's the good cop and one's the bad cop?
Yeah, Courtney's a bad cop all the time. No, it's always been it usually when you do that, Phil, it's usually the head coach has to have a different relationship than the assistant coaches. When I was at UAB, our roles were reversed in that. And so, I think, Joe's in that role and I'm kind of, I understand him and try to, we try to work off each other at times. And I don't want to use good cop, bad cop, but he's got to be a little bit more stern. It's just, he's got to make decisions I don't have to make. And so, the relationship piece sometimes is a little different with an assistant and a head coach. Doesn't mean head coach can't have a good relationship and, joke around with them. But it's just, even when I was a head coach, I was more, a little bit more off from my athletes just because I had to make decisions sometimes that were not popular decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. You had to be kind of the stern one at times. And then the assistant comes along and gives a little pat on the back and a little whisper in the ear, and that kind of thing. And that works well because, every player responds differently.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Howie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let you ask a few questions. Let you give him a break and let you grill him just a little bit.
Yeah, Coach AD, the man with so many hats, so many different titles there at Northeast. We appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on. And but back to that good cop, bad cop, stuff like that. I remember helping a guy out one time at basketball, and he told somebody he's like it's bad cop, worst cop when it came to me and him. And so sometimes you got to be like that. And to me, I feel like that's better than having good cop, bad cop, because sometimes it causes a little tension between the players and the two coaches.
Right. Well, I think, we talk about good cop, bad cop. I think it's more, I would use more the holding them to a standard and accountability. And we've allowed some of these athletes coming through the levels they've come through where that's not a thing because they're such great athletes. Well, we're just going to let them get away with it on the travel ball system or the high school system. This is what we believe. These are the expectations. These are the standards. We put that in front of you early on. So we all agreed on it. So when that doesn't happen, we're not going to let you fly on it. And I think that's what we do. And, the approach of how I approach it, how Courtney approaches it, how Joe approaches it is all different, but we're all trying to hold them to that same standard.
I understand. You can't go wrong with that philosophy right there. Yeah. This is kind of an AD question, I guess you can say. Back to the recruiting part, when the kids and the parents comes in, to me it seems like you're a no nonsense type of person. You're basically like, hey, this is what you're going to get, and if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else, and you're not going to sugarcoat anything like a lot of these others probably do.
Right. No, I'm not selling a used car. And when we talk about recruiting, I've done, I'll meet with recruits. Joe will bring them by my office for me to meet with them and kind of give them more of a perspective from the AD of the support we get for our athletes. To be honest, Joe's done 99% of the recruiting since he's been here. So I've been on the road a little bit this summer, but Joe's been the one that's put this team together, and he's the one that's hammering the road and making the phone calls and all that other stuff. Is kind of how I've always handled it. But yeah, when our athletes come on camp, if it's softball, cross country, or soccer, and the coaches bring them by my office, it's more of a this is what you're getting from. You've got your coaches' standards and expectations. Now, this is what you're getting from the athletic department as an AD. And I want them to know that the support they're getting from not just the athletic department, but also from Dr. Campbell. And that's kind of the lane that I take with that.
Joe actually said if he can get the recruits on campus, you'll close the deal. You're the closer.
I try, but he does the legwork for sure.
This is more of a coaching question. You was talking about earlier, 1 year, the first year compared to the second year and everything. Going from a 4-year school to a 2-year school, what's the biggest difference from a 2 and a 4 year as far as dealing with the players?
Well, you're just dealing with freshmen, sophomores instead of freshmen through seniors, and so the older they get, and you're not dealing with When you're at a 4-year, you've got 20 players on a team. You've got them, let's just say, and it changes, right? 5 per group, 5 per age group. Well, now we're at a place where on a 25 person roster, we've got 13 and 12 maybe, right? Or 10 and 15. So you're dealing with a lot of freshmen it's their first time away from home. And so they're trying to grow up. They're trying to be away from home. They're trying to figure out the school. They're trying to figure out, all sorts of different things. There's no mom and dad here. That they're going home now. And some do. Some still live at home. But so you're dealing with a little bit more. I don't want to say immaturity, but they're not as mature as some of the older ones. And so and you've got people that have been in the system at the 4-year. Where here you've only got maybe half that's been in the system, and they're still sophomores. I mean, they're only 18, 19, 20-year-olds, where you're dealing with, 19, 20, 21, maybe even 22. And now, with all the portal stuff, I mean, there's 23, 24-year-olds playing on the 4-year level. So I think that's the biggest thing is dealing with, not only are you coaching freshmen that are trying to figure it out compared to seniors that, hey, they're a year away from the real world. So it's just 2 different age groups you're dealing with.
All right, Coach. That's my only 2 serious questions I got. So we're kind of going to the recliner now, off the hot seat to the recliner a little bit. Let's get to know Jimmy away from the field or away from the AD office. What do you enjoy doing away from the work?
Just relax. I'm at that point in my career where I've spent so much time on the road. There's I spend time with my wife. Like to travel a little bit, and so get to see some family now that we spent a lot of years away from family. So just kind of relaxing, just enjoying life.
So when you're out and about with the wife, relaxing, all that, maybe your favorite food or favorite place to eat?
I don't know. I think we're still trying to, we do a lot of cooking at home. I say that I do a lot of cooking at home. But we like trying different things and going to different places and, like I said, they're probably not really just a favorite, but we just enjoy just trying new things. We haven't been able to do that for a long time.
What type of music do you like to listen to, or your favorite type of music?
Man, everything. I put my iPhone in the cages when we're hitting, and it goes anywhere from old country to new country to 80s rock. I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say 80s rock. But I mean, I've got rap on there. I've got a little bit of everything.
So when you're in the cage, you're with the girls and they're doing the hitting stuff, listening to your type of music. Do you get any backlash from them girls saying, "Why don't we have to listen to this?"
There's always that handful that have been raised right by their parents, and they know the music. I'm talking about Motley Crue and AC/DC and Guns N' Roses. I mean, I even had one today, and she's like, "Oh, that's Aerosmith." I'm like, "Well, it's actually Run DMC, but you're right because Aerosmith is in it." So They actually do. Some of them, I told them, I said, your parents raised you wrong. They just didn't teach you good music. So, but just, some I get some backlash, but for the most part, we actually have a good handful here that know what good music is.
Yeah, because it's hard to beat 38 Special, Pink Floyd, the Eagles, and people like that.
That's it. And I always have a handful everywhere I've been. There's always that handful that's like, yep, I like this.
Yeah,
it's cool. How many actually say, who is this, or what song is this?
No, they don't say that. They just say, can we change the song? And I'm like, no, you guys got to learn. You got to learn. Until you win a championship, we're going to listen to our music, my music.
Yeah.
Hey, when y'all win a championship, y'all going to have a parade?
That's Dr. Campbell's decision.
Are you going to talk him into it?
That ain't my deal.
I mean,
that's outside my pay grade.
Y'all can like circle around the campus at least once or twice. Have everybody line up around the campus.
So who knows? You never know. That's more of a city thing, right? Especially knowing that what Dr. Campbell has done for the athletic department is amazing, and what Nathaniel Ledbetter has done for our softball program is pretty impressive as well. So with him being around here, you never know.
Yeah. Right. My last question, same question I ask everybody. You being a coach, superstitions or rituals that you have to do before you take the field?
I have gotten so far away from that. I used to when I played, I would roll out of the right side of the bed. I'd put my right sock on before my left sock. I'd put my right shoe on before my left. The older I get, man, I'm just hoping I can get out of bed and walk straight.
Yeah. Welcome to the club. I feel you right there.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Phil, you have anything else before we let AD Coach Jimmy go?
Couple of questions. Now, when the girls play softball, do y'all allow them the freedom to kind of sort of be themselves, because the reward for them is getting to play on game day. Do y'all encourage them to be themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as we're staying within the standards and not doing, we have the old saying, DBS, don't be stupid. But we want each of them have their own personality, and the character of the team is going to be different every year. So one may be a little bit goofy, one team may be a little bit more serious. So we allow that to kind of happen within the team.
Yeah, hey, I understand. And one final question is, what is your single favorite thing about coaching?
The relationships. The ability to build relationships with these young athletes.
Yeah, because you want them to text you later on down the road and let them know that they've got a child on the way or they're getting married, because that's the kind of things that are important in life.
Yeah, let me tell you the thing with them getting married. It's always humbling when they invite you to their wedding, but what I have learned over the years, that has become extremely expensive for me. I have spent a lot of money traveling to different places in the country and buying a lot of gifts. And I'm not the guy that buys like $15 gifts. So we try to make sure we buy them something that they can use. So, but I tell them all, I said, the gray hair that you've created for me, I'm getting my free dinner and free drinks. 100%.
Yeah. That sounds great. Coach AD Jimmy, I can't just call you one because you're wearing multiple hats, but we appreciate your time. We'd love to have you back on sometime, and best of luck. Let's tell everybody about the game coming up Friday. Phil's kind of mentioned a little bit, but let everybody know what time it starts. It's a doubleheader. So,
yeah, we're playing 2 7-inning games starting at 1 o'clock at Mustang Field at Nathaniel Ledbetter Stadium, and it's going to be free admission. So we don't really start, locking in the admission stuff till the spring. But we're excited. It's our first game. It's going to be like Marion's eighth game maybe. So they're a little bit further ahead than we are in the fall. But we're excited. I think our group's kind of tired of practicing against each other, and so it should be fun. They do a good job over there. I don't know. Joe Guthrie started that program, so it's kind of I think a little bit is, hey, he wants to get after him, get after them a little bit. But no, we're just excited to get on the field and play somebody else and see somebody on the other side of the field, see what we have. Every game is an opportunity for us to learn, and that's what we want to do.
Right. Yeah. That's get what is. And I don't really like the saying where everybody says improve 1% every day. Improve 10% every day, not just 1%, because it don't take much to improve 1% every day, but it takes a lot more effort to do 10%.
I tell our kids, and it's kind of a philosophy I've always coached with, is our job after each game is to evaluate what we did really well, what we need to work on, and how we're going to work on it. And it doesn't matter if you lose 10-0 or win 22-0. That is my thought process in everything we do. We go out there and, we get beat. Hey, this is what we need to work on. And if we hammer somebody, hey, this is what we need to work on, because there's always something you can work on. Because at the end of the day, you're getting them prepared for the run at the end. And once you get to the conference tournament, you've got to win the conference tournament to get to the World Series. And once you get to the World Series, it's hard. It's I tell people you can get to the World Series and play well and get your butts beat. I've done it before in Oklahoma City, and so you've got to make sure that they're prepared for everything that get thrown on them at the end when you're playing the best in the country.
Absolutely, Coach. One last thing, we'll let you get going. Shout out, see anybody you like to.
No, I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody at the school. That's we mentioned Dr. Campbell, who, again, I mean, without him, this isn't possible. Without Joe, for me, and Courtney, I'm not here. But there's so many people within this school, guys, that got this athletic program started before I got here, that put in a tremendous amount of work. And I hate to start naming people because I'll forget, but Barbara Kilgore is one of them. Chad Gorm's another one. I don't want to give too much credit to Chad because then his head gets real big. But and then we have people that work these games every day, and John Allen Pope and Kip Williamson, and we have Andrea who does all our presidential hosts and gets them over for the games, and Jared Blackwell who helps up in the video board, and there's just so many people that, again, I hate to start naming people because then I'll start forgetting, and I probably have. Our maintenance crew, our custodial staff keeps that stuff clean, and I know the maintenance crews probably get sick of me because they're like, "Oh, Jimmy needs something else." But without all the people that's really, and I apologize if I'm missing somebody, but this is definitely a 100% team effort by people in this college who's been extremely supportive of what we're doing and what I'm doing, and helped me kind of get settled here. That I can't thank them all enough.
Awesome. Well, Coach Jimmy, AD Jimmy, we appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to having you back on later on during the season, during the I don't want to say these don't count, but when the money's on the table, looking forward to having you back on. Maybe get you and Joe on here at the same time and see what's going on. And best of luck come Friday. And Phil, try to get out there and support them if you can for RiverCity-Media at least.
Yeah, I'm going to try to Friday. I'm going to try to see them, that's for sure.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time and allowing me to come out here and chat a little bit.
Oh, no problem. We appreciate your time. We know
Yeah.
you're extremely busy, and you could be at home with the wife right now, but instead you're with two guys that, probably looks nowhere near as good as your wife. So anyway.
Not at all.
So anyway, I'm the Howard Channel. I'm with Phil Harris, and our special guest tonight was Northeast Alabama Community College / assistant softball coach Jimmy Kolaitis. Thank you for joining us tonight, and good night.
All right.